everybody. Welcome to another MoGraph podcast. I'm your host, Matt Milstead. Joining me this week, I'm super excited to have him here. It's been a while since you've been on the show, and I'm super excited to talk about everything that we've been up to. A lot has changed in our industry since. Matt Silverman from I Believe in Swordfish.
Thank you, Matt. Definitely the not only has things changed in our industry, but things have just changed in the world in general.
Yeah,
So
seriously.
it's crazy.
Excited to catch up. But in the meantime, I want to give a special shout out to our sponsor, Otoy. They're a universal sponsor. They sponsor the podcast and the website. You know them, you love them. They're the makers of Octane Render and the Render Network. With Octane, you can create super photorealistic renders incredibly fast. And for those renders that need the extra little push of power, Render Network has you covered. The Render Network allows you to render your Octane, Redshift, and Blender Cycles frames in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost of other cloud rendering services. And a reminder that the Render Royale is going on right now. The time is almost up. I think you've got 1 week left, June 25th, to get those submissions in. The theme is Urban Utopias. You can win up to $1,000 per render engine, Redshift, Octane, or Blender Cycles. So make sure and get those in. Check out renderfoundation.com/royale for details and to submit. But yeah, here we are with Mr. Matt Silverman from I believe in Swordfish. Tell me, okay, let's start with that, because the last time we were here, it was just Swordfish. Now it's I Believe in Swordfish. Tell me about the change there.
The corporate name is I Believe in Swordfish Inc. And when I started the company, I wanted it to be called Swordfish for some crazy reason of it just happened to be a code name of a project I was working on. It was actually the PlayStation Store. The PlayStation Online Store was codenamed Swordfish. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but it's been 15 years, so
Right.
I don't think it's a problem. I was working on a project for the store, and the name was there, and I needed a company, and I was rebooting from my last company, and I tried to register Swordfish, and LegalZoom was like, you can't get Swordfish. So there was a song called Swordfish by the Dead Milkmen, which was the first band I ever saw play live. And the lyrics are, I Believe in Swordfish. So like a crazy guy said, hey, how about just name the company I Believe in Swordfish Inc. And then I got a DBA doing business as Swordfish, and we went by Swordfish. We just used the name that I originally wanted. And a couple of years ago, I brought in a friend who's a really smart business guy to help analyze the company and figure out, like, where should I go from here? And one of his suggestions was to use the full name, I Believe in Swordfish. He's like, it's unique. Swordfish is generic. You got a very unique name. It's great. I love it. So he's my guru. So I went with him, and we changed all of our email addresses, which you don't realize how many logins and problems you have by doing that. I think everybody at my company wanted to kill me, but I was like, he's my guru. I gotta listen to him. And it is really hard, like in conversation, to be like, hi, I'm Matt from I Believe in Swordfish. I Believe in Swordfish is a motion graphics company.
Yeah.
So we interchange it, but I have to agree that it's unique, and
Yeah.
and we redid the logo, and I got a bunch of stickers, and I stick them all over town. So
Nice.
and it's great. My barber, it's on my barber's mirror, and he for my beard, and he was like, yeah, my customers come in and they ask, is that a religion? And I was like, it is. It's a religion, man. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
funny.
that's the name. Yep.
That's cool. That's good. Yeah, I can imagine all the changing around. Oh, the email addresses. When Dave and I switched over, like Camp MoGraph stuff, like I started doing more of the like socials and all this other stuff, and it's amazing how many emails are interspersed there. Even now, I'm just like, hey, I think I've got one of my email addresses connected to like one of my old Nexus Motion ones when Dave and I were working together, connected to like a crypto wallet that I've got. And it happens occasionally where I'm like, hey, I just need you to get into this email because I don't know the password.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it gets crazy, and it's like half of my logins, I'm just like,
Yeah.
thank God for 1Password.
Right.
That's all I gotta say.
Right.
Official sponsor of MoGraph
I
podcast today, 1Password.
That's funny.
Yeah.
How's business been? Like a lot has changed since the last time we talked. We were talking earlier right before the show, and the last time we had you on, we were still doing the NFT spots, and like, that was during the big boon of NFTs, but like from that point, we've gone like NFTs, Unreal Engine, AI, all of this stuff. Like, how have
Yeah.
things been in your neck of the woods?
My neck of the woods is good, and I'm here in Marin County, California, just north of San Francisco. So we're fortunate that we have tech right here. So
Yeah.
that's our bread and butter. Clients are going to tech companies, and tech companies aren't slowing down right now. The big ones, and what I learned from my past experience doing a lot of advertising work is when you hit a bad economy, the first thing, and potential wars and things, the first thing
Yeah.
that people do is cut back on marketing. And then they realize, and we're also the first to feel the bounce back because then they realize that that cutback didn't work,
Mm-hmm.
and they then start marketing again. So we're the first to know that the turnaround is going to happen. But the other thing that I learned is that when a recession hit, like in 2008, we were fortunate to have started to work on motion design for UX at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Working with PlayStation Store, codename Swordfish, and other. We were working on the full range of Sony's products. Every device we were working on, how animation and motion works in the UI, and it that picks up.
Mm-hmm.
So when the economy goes bad, these big tech companies, at least they who we work for, they then start going into R&D mode and start building new products so that when the economy bounces, they have new stuff to sell. So by bridging the gap between marketing and UX has been really, you know, an amazing balance. And I've been doing this since 2008, trying to balance like that. And a shout out to Sarah Wilkinson at uxandmotion.com. If you want to learn how to do animation and motion for UX, he's the man. Anyway, that's kind of my state of business is steady.
Yeah.
The reality between the last time I was on, which is probably like 2020 or 2021,
Yeah. It's
um,
been a while.
the yeah I was the first to tell you guys NFTs were a scam.
I promise you,
And
you weren't the first, but yeah, you were very vocal
and I,
about
but
it.
and I had actually heard it from a woman who sold her first company for like $1 billion. I don't want to say what company it is,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people might go there to find like babysitters or nannies or help.
Mm-hmm.
She rebooted into a Web3 company and wanted a video by us, and she explained the entire scam to me.
Mm-hmm.
So the I knew it was a scam, and it proved right. And the we were fortunate to do a trailer for an NFT video game, and he wanted to give me tokens, and I was like, dude, I want cash,
Yeah.
man, US dollars,
Yeah.
dude. And he paid $450,000 for the launch video, and I don't think he's last I talked to him, he's now pivoted to an AI company, and he told me, I said, "What about Web3?" And he goes, "Oh, that's all bullshit." So that's the world they were living in there,
Uh-huh.
and the reality is like everybody was looking for this new tech, this new revolutionary tech, and they were like just pigeonholing Web3 and blockchain into this thing.
Yeah.
And the reality is that AI then hits, and it's kind of crazy using the same GPUs that created all this blockchain tech.
Yeah.
We now have found a use case that is real and is revolutionary. And we the last couple of years we've been heavily investing in AI and Unreal Engine, and both of them I believe are when I got into this business in the mid 90s, I was seeing things monthly. I'd go to SIGGRAPH or NAB and I would see things that were magic.
Mm-hmm.
I'd look at it and go, that's impossible. And the one that always comes to mind was the first time I saw 3D camera tracking, a match moving system. Because when I started, it was like, you had tennis balls on
Yeah.
set, and they were manually tracking where those tennis balls line up. And I went to NAB or SIGGRAPH and I saw Maya live and it auto tracked a CG element in. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
bullshit. That's impossible.
Uh-huh.
And I was actually with an ILM effect supervisor, Scott Squires, and he looked at me and he was like, "Well, we've been doing this at ILM for years." And I was like, "What the hell do I know?" But seeing things like that are just it was magic. It was every time you'd go to a show, you'd see something that was kind of
Mm-hmm.
revolutionary. And then for the last 20 years, it's just been this little iterative stepping stones, and suddenly here comes AI and it's fucking
Yeah.
magic. And it's like, I remember being at I used to be a flame artist and I was at a discrete logic user group at NAB, and they came out and they were like, we got this new version of show, and they started deep zooming into, I think, a business card, a discrete logic business card. And they were like zooming in and zooming in, and it was like everybody was like, oh my God. And they were like, ha, we're just kidding.
Yeah.
It's like the reality is that we are today. That kind of tech is actually
Yeah.
works. Like, and you there was these old movies like Wag the Dog where they were in like a Photoshop program and stuff just being generated, and it was like,
Yeah.
that's not how this works. That's so stupid. And it's like, here we are today. That's how this works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything we thought we knew, the last time we talked, it's a completely different fucking
It
world. I
is.
would have never believed that everything we're dealing with is happening now.
Yeah.
2 years ago, and here we are, and it's a reality, and it's a game changer. And I was always the guy who could predict the future. I knew where the puck was going.
Mm-hmm.
I could see, man. I have absolutely no idea. I can't talk to a kid coming out of college right now and tell him, what to do because I really don't know.
Yeah.
Everything changes every day.
Let me ask you this, because you're based around the San Francisco area. You've been there a while, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so dealing with tech companies and stuff like that, you must see a lot of, going back to like the crypto people and the NFT stuff, you must see a lot of this, or like, hey, this is the next big thing or something like that, being around that space, I would assume, right?
Yeah. No, I've seen stuff. I've worked on stuff that never saw the light of day, or saw the light of day and disappeared before you could even know it came out. We helped Sony create AR glasses 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That you can find it if you type in Sony AR glasses Ghostbusters. You'll find it.
Okay.
We did a full Ghostbusters demo, and they were like, translucent lenses. It wasn't pass through. It was real AR, and I dressed in the full Ghostbusters suit at Sony Pictures lot
Nice.
and did the demo, and you could see ghosts up in the sky. Like, it was crazy. Like, it really worked. And they're at the time, I think they were really trying to push it towards theme parks, and they never got deals. And
Yeah.
so I've seen the tech, and when we were building that, it was like, yeah, VR is bullshit. VR is the stepping stone to get to
Yeah.
AR. And that was the point where everybody was like, VR, VR, VR. And I'm hearing this is the stepping stone. And in my opinion, AR glasses are the future of all computing.
Mm-hmm.
Like why would I hold a phone up on the train and get tennis elbow
Yeah.
tendonitis when I could just like sit there and look through my glasses and everything's floating.
Mm-hmm.
And then even things like, my thought was always like, that's how people consume computing, but people creating computing will still do it at their desk.
Yeah.
And then when you see something like the Vision Pro, you're like, no, the quality, you could actually
Yeah.
have monitors floating in front of you. And I don't need this computer in the screen in the future. And I used to think the future was Minority Report, and I was like, this is amazing. Motion graphics guys, we're going to be filling giant screens
Yeah.
everywhere. And then you realize, why do you need a giant screen when you could have a little tiny pass-through screen right here,
Yeah.
and you're just seeing it floating in front of you. So, there's definitely things that we see the future, and then things change. But AI is changing everything. Like I just watched the podcast with uh forget his name right now.
The last week,
The
Sunny.
music
Oh.
the music producer who did the Beastie Boys, Rick Rubin.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rick Rubin's got all these podcasts out now about vibe coding.
Yeah.
And I love Rick Rubin. He's like my guru. That
Have you read
dude's
his
so
book?
cool. Yeah, I have
Yeah, I
it. I
just read
love it.
that
It's
last
like,
month. It was all right.
you know what? I just like the fact that it's like I pick it up and I go onto my hammock and I'll read a few chapters and
Yeah.
fall asleep. And it's fast, easy read, and it's about creativity, and I
Yeah.
like that. But he's all about vibe coding is his whole new
Uh-huh.
thing, and he's working with Anthropic on this vibe coding thing, and it just inspired me to say, what maybe I could code. So I got in ChatGPT at 10:30 at night, and I was like, I'm going to try to recreate a piece of software that we made at Swordfish called Boardfish, which is a storyboarding tool. We were selling it through Mekajiki for a while, and my CTO Brendan spent 6 months making it. It probably cost me $30,000 to build. Um, and it was Mac only, and everybody's like, we want it on iPad, and we want it on PC.
Mhm.
I tried to start recreating that in ChatGPT. Within an hour, I had it working, like panels, dragging them around, but like our version, you would have to draw the panels, or you would make them in CG, and you have a folder of panels, and then you load them in a Boardfish. It was a page layout program.
Mhm.
But what I built in ChatGPT, you don't need to make a panel. You whatever you write a description, it'll make you that prompt right there.
Wow.
And I've got it using a pencil sketch prompt, and I made a whole inspector panel last night, and added 5 different models for sketch and for watercolor and cartoon and photoreal. But ChatGPT just tells you this stuff. It
Yeah.
goes, would you want me to give you a few models? And I'm like, yes. And then it's like, boom. And then it's like errors. And I'm like, there's errors. And it's like, oh, I see the errors. Do you want me to fix them? Yeah. And it's like, it shows you how to fix it.
Mhm.
I don't know how to code. So I'm looking at all these blocks of code, and I'm like, yes, yes. And then you're like, oh, I want to see the random seed. Boom, you get the random seed. Oh, I want to be able to edit that random seed. I want to copy and paste that random seed. I want to reorder panels. Everything works, dude. Like, it is. If you would have just asked me 3 days ago, I'd be like, I can't do it. What I was saying was, I know ChatGPT could do this, but I'm not a coder,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
Where you begin is I want to make a storyboard program. There's 6 panels on a page.
Mhm.
Go. And it's like, boom, and it just, you see all the code being written, and it knows what a storyboard is. So you don't even have to explain,
Yeah.
like, make me a page. I have to give more explanation to a real life coder, because that coder might not know what a storyboard
Right.
is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then like you're like, oh, I want a loader spinner while it's loading the AI, and it makes you one, and then you go like, oh, I don't like that one. Make me a different one, and it 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 changes it, like it's insane. Or I'll just, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'll say, use a different library.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's called a library, and it's like it figures out, because it's able to just go online and go, okay, there's all of these ways to make spinners. I'll try this one.
Mhm.
This seems to be the most popular. That seems to be second most popular. I'll keep trying. I'm like, it did a library to do drag and drop, and it was really clunky. And then I was like, try again. Use a different library. For the fourth try, butter. And actually, now that I think about it, I think when I fell asleep at like 2 a.m., the reordering broke.
Uh-huh.
So that's like the next step. I got to be like, hey, the panel reordering doesn't work anymore. It's like, I see the problem. You need to change blah blah
You
blah
just
blah. And I just
fix
say
it.
yes, fix it. And you don't even need to be polite. Like when I do this with Brendan, I have to say please. I'm just like fix it. And at certain points, I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to say thank you. That was
Yeah.
amazing. And I have there were things that I asked it to do when I first jumped in where I literally just like the sound of joy that came out of my mouth was
Uh-huh.
like shocking surprise that this worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage everybody, it's like there's so much more to AI than like click a button, generate a video.
Mm-hmm.
There's things like this where you could build your own. If you could build software that'll work inside of a web browser, guaranteed you'll be able to build it. And even things like I was like, hey, make me some particle systems with processing, and it was like processing's discontinued. You really want to use p5.js to do it, and I'm like, okay, make me some cool graphics and process in P5.js.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes and does it. And it's like, oh, we're faking the 3D with 2D transforms. If you want to do this in real 3D, I could rebuild this for you in WebGL. Yes,
Jeez.
it's
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 just vibe
fucking
coding.
bonkers, dude.
Like you're the
I don't
second
even
you're the second
like
person to
it,
mention vibe coding and like
it when he explains when Rick Rubin explains vibe coding and what I think he's done is he's written like his watch the podcast.
okay.
Somebody used his in a photo of him where he was listening to some headphones at a trade show,
Mm-hmm.
and that became the meme of vibe coding,
Okay.
like 6 weeks ago. And he found out, and he was like, "That's an AI photo of me." And like he never even saw the photo, and he's like, "I guess I'm the godfather of vibe coding." So he kind of wrote a book, like the creativity book, about this idea of vibe coding, and it's a digital book, but on every page there's some generative art next to it. And I don't believe he's making the art. I think that Anthropic is making all these cool little MoGraph things to go with what he's saying.
Mm.
But to me, the idea of what I heard it, I was like, I'm gonna do vibe coding. I didn't know what he really meant.
Yeah.
I was like, let me just try to like talk to ChatGPT to make code,
Yeah.
and it worked. It worked, and now, yeah.
I've used it before for After Effects expressions and stuff like that. You know, I've had to do a little bit more work. I'm very lucky that I did take at least one or two classes in like C++ or whatever, so I have a very basic understanding of coding, so I'm able to like follow through. But I don't know. It sounds fun. It sounds really fun.
It is such a rabbit hole where I'm like, I can now picture, I used to be the guy to like fall asleep on my couch with my laptop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm inside After Effects or whatever. And it's been years since I've been in that position. And, I woke up at 2 a.m. on my couch with my laptop in my hands last
Yeah.
night. And on the first night where I did it, like I said, I started at 10:30 and by like midnight, I had a fully working thing. And the next morning I woke up and I was like, you just made software last night.
Mm-hmm.
And like for a minute, I was like super excited. And then a split second later, I was like, this is so depressing. I can't get out of bed. Because what's going to happen to our society when
Yeah.
coders and blue collar people can't, I don't know. And then it's like, what is software anymore?
Yeah.
I could literally just I could just copy and paste what I made last night and email it to you. And you could then just put that in a chat GPT and say, run this.
Yeah.
And now you have a storyboarding tool. Like, where's the value?
I mean, the creativity that comes along with what you created, it was in your brain. You needed a tool and you
I,
came up with that, you know?
yeah, no, exactly. And
Like,
to come up with the original Boardfish was a lot of thinking and years of actually how should storyboards
for
work.
sure.
And now I'm just kind of recreating it, which makes it a lot easier and it allows me to understand how this process works because I know the functions and I know why I put those in. And I'm just trying to match what I built, what Brendan built
Mhm.
before. So it's giving me a perfect, but like, what's the what's the chances that in the future you'll be able to just type in, make me a Photoshop competitor.
Yeah.
Here's the manual to Photoshop, copy it.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it will. Every what if that you say, it will happen. And you don't know if it's going to be tomorrow, or you don't know if it's going to be 10
Mm-hmm.
years. And what's scary is how fast these what ifs are coming true. And if it's a situation where you say copy Photoshop, and you're not selling it, you're just using it,
Yeah.
can Adobe actually ever find out? Will they ever sue you? No. So
Yeah.
like what's the future of software? Like it's real time compiling, and I don't fucking know, dude. And this is where, like, our last podcast 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I thought I knew everything, man.
Yeah.
It's Bob Dylan. Like, I was so much older then. I'm
Yeah.
younger than that now, man. We're in a crazy time, man.
Yeah.
So
Are you
and then you look at
go ahead.
things like in my mind it's like, well, 3D is where we control shit. And recently I learned about this new AI tool that Ed Catmull from Pixar is funding,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a generative AI world builder where you're able to walk around. So it's like a first person video game, but
Ah.
as you walk forward with you're using the keyboard keys, and as you walk forward, it's continuing to generate that world on the fly right there, like that fast. And it's super low quality right now. Like, it looks like a very dreamy,
Mm-hmm.
but it will get better, and it will be photorealistic. And suddenly you're building a first person video game without any geometry.
Mm-hmm.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're it's like paradigm shifting to where, like, is 3D really even something that'll be needed? Because, if you would have asked me a month ago, I would have said the future is when AI converges with Unreal Engine,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where we're going to control the AI.
Mm-hmm.
But do you even need the engine anymore when you're going to be able to just say, make me a video game like Fortnite, go, and there's like not even any geometry in there?
Yeah. The cool stuff that I've seen along those lines is like the reskinning feature, like the AI reskinning, where they'll take Fortnite and say, okay, put it in the style of like Red Dead Redemption or the Lego movie or something like that. And then you can play the game exactly like it is, but it's just
Yeah.
reskinned and instantly. That's cool.
Yeah, I've seen a guy did, you can make your own character in Mid-Journey and then reapply it to the game character inside of Unity, and now your character is running around the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of this is like, it's really interesting because I have a friend at Google, and he was like, we need more creative technologists. And he's like, that term doesn't exist. This job description is brand new. This is the future of we need a ton of creative technologists, and these people don't exist. And there's no schools training kids how to be creative technologists. And he's like, right now there are tracks at MIT and at Harvard, at maybe he said Parsons, maybe, but nothing on the West Coast. And it's funny because Tatsuma, who you worked with,
Mm-hmm.
who used to work for me, he was when I hired, he was my intern, and when I hired him, he's like, "Can I be a creative technologist?" And I was like, "Yeah, whatever title you want on
Whatever
your
you want.
business
Yeah,
card,
sure.
take it, dude." And he was ahead of his time, because that's it. It's like these people who are playing with engines, playing with things like Touch Designer, and this Blender
Mm-hmm.
community. People are just like, they're hackers and makers. And it's interesting. The guys who are really good at it are actually the dudes that come from the Flash world, which I find to be very funny, because when Flash was popular, I hated Flash. And I was like, that's where people make shit animation. I'm a Maya guy. I'm an After Effects guy. You don't do it in Flash as a joke. And I hated Macromedia and everything. And it's like those guys either became UI UX designers,
Mm-hmm.
or they became these Unity freaks, and touch designer freaks. And those are the guys that are like mashing different technology and exploring it. That's the value right now, and for today, because obviously I told you I don't can't predict the future,
Yeah.
but This is what I've been telling kids right now. And this is what I've been telling the Academy of Art in San Francisco. I'm like, you guys need to start a track on creative technology.
Creative technology. I love that. I love that title and that idea because it's so much more than just like being an artist. You know, it's like it's merging the technology with the art in order to come up with something that is useful for everyone. I don't know. That's rad. I really like that.
And this team at Google that's looking for them, they're looking for like artists and residencies
Mm-hmm.
because they can't they want people to think outside the box. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want to just grab other Googlers. They want out of the box thinkers and say, here's all of our technology stacks that we've been developing. What ideas do you have?
Yeah.
So if you're interested in audiovisual reactors of like how can I do this with AI, like yeah, spend 6 months
Mm-hmm.
playing with it. And we'll give you visual designers who will create skin UIs for you. It's like make us stuff because they're this is the point we're at. No one knows where things are going, and you need human beings to come up with ideas for what we're going to use these things for.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
However, that being said, so
That being
last
said, the
week,
complete opposite may be true.
last week I was saying, as a creative director, I'm safe
Uh-huh.
because I've been prompting my artists like you when
Mm-hmm.
you freelance for me. I've got an idea. There's sparks in my head, and I have to communicate them to you to execute. I'm a prompt engineer.
There you go.
You're my bot. Okay. What I realized,
It's
we're
nice
working
of
on
you
a
to
logo.
think us like that. Think of us.
We're somebody actually told somebody on the big job on the first ceiling job you were on. I was having beers with him afterwards, and he was like, we were talking about AI, and he's like, "You've essentially been a prompt engineer your whole life," and I was like, "Wow,
Yeah.
that's deep, dude."
Yeah.
Um, but the other day we're working on a logo animation for a client, and my creative director Dean is on it, and Dean knocked out 30 versions of a logo in a day. He's the
Yeah.
crusher.
Yes.
And he and I'm spitballing ideas, and those were all ideas I got from the client call, and I'm like, yeah, we should be thinking about this and that and this and that. And then one day I was talking to ChatGPT at night. I come in the next morning and I'm like telling Dean, I'm like, I had this crazy conversation with ChatGPT last night. And I was like, watch how this works. Because it was the first time I used the voice. I
Uh-huh.
started talking to it. I've never been talking to it. So I started talking to it and I was like, it's so conversational. So I was like, do you know anything about blah blah blah? I don't want to say the client's name.
Sure.
So like, do you know anything about widget? And it's like, oh yeah, widget's the world leader in blah 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 and blah blah blah. And I was like, based off of the information you know about widget, we have to animate their logo. Do you have any ideas for how we should animate this? And it started throwing out ideas that we had already come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And then it throws out another idea that Dean was like, whoa, yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And then it like throws one out that was like a bad idea, and Dean interrupts it. He's like, that's so stupid. And so ChatGPT just stops talking, and I was like, I'm sorry, he interrupted you. Continue. And it's like, oh yeah, the blah blah blah. It's just like you're so calm, but it was like, holy shit, maybe the creative director is not safe because the project manager could just ask it the right questions
Mm-hmm.
and get information back like a creative director.
Yeah, but
I
it's
don't know.
also I think there's also that little bit of understanding or that large amount of understanding that you have or that a creative director has in order to be able to drive it the correct way, to be able to say something the correct way, because
Oh,
yeah, like being able to use terms that we use in our industry on a daily basis, the average layman who hasn't worked in motion design may not know.
and that's where like the good enough theory comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my opinion, 99% of the work, that kind of work that we do, can be good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that 1% where you're dealing with like my clients who will nitpick the fuck out of something. or a director on a film who's like, okay, take 132, let's go, guys. Um, that's where there's a problem. But if you're a startup and you need to do an explainer video, there's no reason that the product manager shouldn't be able to feed an outline into an AI system and get back an explainer video and then say, you know what, actually, I want it in the style of South Park. No, I want it in the style of anime.
Mm-hmm.
And that can happen today. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Showrunner AI.
Mm-mm.
It's it was made by Edward Saatchi, who I believe he's the heir to the Saatchi and Saatchi fortune, the advertising family.
Okay.
And for years, he was the head of Oculus Story Studio and Fable Studio. And now he has a company called Showrunner, and they're making they made an episode of South Park in AI probably 2 years ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it was funny and it was good and it looked perfect, and they got a lot of buzz. And the next thing you know, I'm pretty sure they got a lot of attraction from studios to make a TV show. And I'm trying to not violate NDAs here
Sure.
because I'm trying to remember what's public. Um, but essentially, you prompt in Discord a they've announced this. They're making a TV show called Exit Valley, and it is the TV. It's a spoof of the show Silicon Valley,
Okay.
done in South Park style, and it's completely prompted. So you go into Discord and you say, I want Elon Musk and Donald Trump fighting in front of Apple Park,
Uh-huh.
and it'll make it for you. It'll make you it'll make you the animation of that scene, and it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
And there's cuts. There's cuts. It's like a scene. And then if you want to modify the script, you could pull it up into a text file, modify the script, send it back in. It'll update that shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're done, you say, give me the next shot and give me the next shot and give me the next shot. And they're making, they're kind of crowdsourcing. The beta testers are making episodes and everybody votes on which one's the best. And then I don't want to say much more because I don't know
Sure.
what's public or not, but it works. And as I was using it, it was like, I didn't know I was signing up to participate in a TV show. I thought I could use this as a tool for my
Mm-hmm.
work. But I was looking at it going, there's absolutely no reason that right now I can't make an explainer video using a South Park style and I have access to all of these characters. I would violate the terms of their beta test probably if I did that.
Interesting.
But the idea is there that you're gonna so 95% of the world that needs an explainer video is going to get good enough.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, what they're going to miss, and we were just talking to an AI startup recently, and they need an explainer video. They had money, and he's like, "Let me send you my outline," and he sends the a rough script, and it was like he didn't know how to write an explainer video in the proper format. So, I was like, hey, you really should talk about why the audience has a problem
Mm-hmm.
and tell me my pain points so I understand. And it's a problem solution result structured. That's how we make explainer videos. So it was like he didn't even he structured it wrong. So if he gave it to the AI to make, it wouldn't be effective. And when I told him all this, he was like, "Yeah, one of my competitors just came out with their explainer video, and I based it on their structure, and they're getting no hits."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "You're see?" I was like, "We should rethink this." So there is something about the human, but all of that will be solved over time. It'll be like, you'll be able to just train the AI on how it should be structured.
Yeah. So how else are y'all using AI into your workflows? Like anything motion graphics related outside of like inspiration or building apps or anything like that?
Yeah, we've tried to use it on a couple real projects in different ways, and it doesn't get anything. Nothing gets done faster
Mm-hmm.
really right now for me because we're using them as tools
I mean,
as
you've got the
and
Crusher.
combining it with
He is just as fast
yeah.
as an AI.
Yeah, but I mean, there's things like we could get some interesting techniques that we couldn't have
Hmm.
gotten before, and it just changes where people fit into the pipeline and the order of operations in some sense. So it's something that right now I'm not ready to like commit to full AI. But as we were talking about earlier, we had you worked with me on a project 3 years ago that and I'm going to be very vague here because I don't want to violate NDAs.
Sure.
But we had to take static art, still images, and create 20-second cinemagraphs out of it. Make them move by any way possible. Puppet tool or recreate it in 3D, reproject camera maps. Um, we did crazy fluid dynamic simulations in Houdini
Hmm.
of macro water splashes, which were insane. And when we started that project, we were doing one-offs with the client, and those were $22,000. When we got the batch that you worked on, we were getting $7,500 per in a batch of 250. So it was a multi-million dollar project, but we were able to lower the rate and get an economy of scale.
Sure.
Client has come back now and said, "Hey, can you do thousands of these things? And if we were to give you like 10,000, can you do them for $50 each if you were able to use AI?" And that's where we figured out that we could probably do them for 250 bucks each,
Hmm.
with a lot of caveats. But and then a week later, we did a bunch of tests and stuff was working, stuff was not working. A week later, a friend did some tests for me, and she is developing her own AI system, and she's realized that the best all the great research right now is coming out of China. So she's translating the research papers to English to read them, understanding the concepts and the tech, and then she's learning Chinese to prompt because the you have to prompt in Chinese to get the great results, and the whole way that their syntax works is kind of backwards. But she's learning how to do this, and she's processing it straight to the Amazon AWS using Blackwell NVIDIA Blackwell chips, and she's able to get 8K quality native, no upres. She has full control. She's able to get multiple layers out to After Effects,
That's
including depth
crazy.
maps, and it all worked.
Is she
And
using something like Comfy UI, or she's actually building her own solution for it?
she's there is like no GUI to it.
Hmm.
It's code, and it's a lot of Python. I think that there's something in the middle. Maybe there's a Comfy taking a bunch of Python and just doing a few things and then running it through.
Hmm.
But I really don't know the process. But I told her, I said, look, if we get 10,000 of these things, that's 2.5 million bucks at $250 each. I'll split it with you. And we will handle the ideas and you handle the processing. And
That's so much
it
work, though. That's like,
and but what's again like the day of a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, before I saw this demo she gave me, I was under the assumption that the models were trained at a resolution and you can never get them to go above that 1500 or whatever, each one's capped at, because the model was trained that way. And that's what AI people had told me in the past.
mhm.
And suddenly she comes back and she's like, no, I'm getting 8K. It's all a limitation of the hardware. So, and I asked her, I said, hey, what about these A6000 cards? And she's like, no, you need Blackwell. So it has to be done on, she tried the latest Blackwell, what's it, the 5090s or something, and
Yeah,
she was like, that they were too slow. I'm hitting the same Blackwell, uh, you know, systems that they're training the AI on.
yeah.
So,
But what's the
you know,
what's the cost? Like, it seems to me like sending some of those
somehow
things to AWS could be very, very expensive. You
well,
know.
when you get credits on these online systems like Midjourney or
Hmm.
Runway, the majority of the money you're spending on that credit is going into their pocket, Runway's pocket.
That makes
So
sense.
you're bypassing that middle SAS that's pocketing the money, and she's getting it's about like 30 cents an hour for her to
Oh,
do this.
okay. Yeah, that's cost effective.
Yeah.
How quickly is
Yeah,
she
so
able to
like
get out some of the animations?
what's
How
that?
quickly, like from prompt to send and
Seconds.
wow.
Like seconds. And the what's crazy, and she could do up to, I think she was saying between 60 and 90 seconds of animation
Wow.
at 8K.
Gosh. Can you imagine?
So
Like
so
imagine it
when
just that blows my mind.
so for example, we you worked with us on cruise ship
Yeah.
ceilings. We did a 9K LED ceiling for MSC Cruises. There's a story on maxon.com about
Mhm.
it if you go into their press stores. Um, so when we did that first ship, we ended up delivering 46 hours of content at 9K. And it was 9464 by 2288. So it wasn't like 9K 16 by 9. It
Yeah,
was
but still.
9K
Yeah.
wide. It was heavy.
Yeah.
And we were rendering a ton of Redshift, a little bit of EV, but it was 95%, 99% Redshift from Cinema or Houdini. And and to get that job done required us I think it ended up being 23 years of rendering time if we would have done it on one computer. And we divvied it out to like 9 years of rendering time in our local render farm. We have
Ooh.
100 GPUs at the office,
I'm sure most of
and
that was the one I was working on.
and then the remainder, the 14 years of rendering time was done in Fox Render Cloud, which is a great cloud rendering service out of China. It worked really well. But we ended up spending over $300,000 in Fox Render to get that job done. And there were renders that took 20 minutes a frame, or sorry, that cost $20,000 that we got back, and we didn't know there was an error until we saw it at 9K.
Hmm.
So you would take that $20,000 and burn it. What's crazy to me are two things. Is that like Tatsuma did a school of fish in Houdini. It was a 9,000 frame loop, or we could have done it at 45. It was probably a 4,500 frame loop,
Sure.
5 minute loop, and there was probably 5,000 fish swimming in a physics simulation from Houdini and creating this loop. And here we are today, where if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd say no, you can't replace that ceiling with AI content because it's too low res.
Hmm.
Knowing what I know now, we could do 8K 16 by 9. That means we totally can do, 9464 by
Yeah.
2288, which is what we were delivering. And you'll be able to just prompt, give me a school of fish, make it loop, and I want it to be 90 seconds, which we could do right now. In a few years, when the next NVIDIA chips come out, you'll be able to say, give me the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. It will happen. And no CG is involved. In the meantime, what we did we just did another ship at the same resolution. And you started on this project with us at the very beginning. And we pushed that one through Unreal instead of using Redshift. And in the end, we had no cloud rendering costs. We rendered 5.5 hours of 9K, and it was all done on three PCs at our office running 4090 cars.
Yeah, that was one thing when we were working on that project and you were pushing Unreal. Just knowing the costs of the rendering from the previous project, I knew you were going to save a ton of money right there. And yeah, how did you like? I will say, the stuff that I was getting out of Redshift looked slightly better, but the stuff that Dean was doing out of Unreal, just incredible.
Yeah, no, and a lot, no offense, but a lot of the stuff you did ended up getting killed.
It
And it
happens.
really was just conceptually, we were trying to do things that are impossible.
Hmm.
And we were trying to look up at a ceiling at Victorian houses,
Yeah.
and it's like you know, it might look great from the middle of a 50 at the 50-yard line
Yeah.
looks great. Yard line, it falls apart because you
It's
have
the
perspective.
keystoning.
And
Yeah, the keystoning just kills it. Yeah.
you know what's crazy is I just went to the Sphere a few weeks ago. I saw Dead and Co at the Sphere, and they had shots where I was like, we tried that and it didn't work. How are they getting it to work? And the reality is like snow coming down and falling and feeling like it's coming right at your face. And what I realized is that it never came right at my face. It all came around my face and down the edges of the sphere.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that illusion that it's fallen at you. Whereas when we just had a flat ceiling, it never can get below the level of the ceiling. So um, all of this stuff, every project, it's a different challenge, and I learn something every day. That's why I still love what I do. But Unreal Engine to me is the biggest game changer on the 3D side of things we're doing. And then AI is just a global mindfuck.
Yeah, man. Okay, so I want to do a couple of headlines because I know you
Sure.
got opinions on those, you know,
Oh yeah.
and stuff. I'll go over to this first headline. And I had this last week, or ready to go, but we talked too long. But Maxon acquired Left Angle, and you had mentioned that you had some connection to the creators of Left Angle. Talk to me about that. Because it's
Yeah,
an
so
AE. For those who don't know, it's an AE competitor, basically.
they're the guy who made it. And what's the name of the product? Left Angle
Oh, I don't remember.
Autograph,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
autograph. Yeah. We had a different name. So the guy who made it, his name is Alexander, and he's from France. And he we actually connected before he did this because he previously had an open source project called Natron. I think that's how you pronounce it, or Natron, Natron, and it was a ripoff of Nuke. It was an open source free ripoff of Nuke, and it looked identical to Nuke, to where if you showed a Nuke artist, they'd think they're looking at Nuke. And it was financed by the French government. So he was hooked in with the INRIA Institute out of France, and they're kind of they're kind of like Y Combinator, but government backed, and they invest in technology, in people to come up with new tech. And back in the day when I started in this industry, they financed a company called RealViz, which made Matchmover. It was one of the first 3D match moving tools. Autodesk acquired it. They had Stitcher that did stitching, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, Image Modeler was a photogrammetry tool. All of that was made by the French government. So this guy in France, he shut down Natron, and he wanted to rebuild it into a motion graphics tool. And I had started to, I got introduced to him by the Revision Effects guys who I know here from, they live in town, Pierre and Pete.
Yeah.
We were having lunch, and I was telling him how I wanted to create like a node-based system that could do motion graphics. And they were like, you should talk to these
Alexander. Yeah.
guys, Alexander, because he has Natron, and maybe we came to this idea to make a node in Natron that would split it out and make it work more like Flame, where you have batch and action inside of Flame, so it's like you put After Effects inside of one node. That was my idea.
Uh-huh.
So we started talking, and he was like, "No, I'm shutting it down, and I'm recreating from scratch a new company, and we're going to build a motion graphics tool." And he was interested in having me help him with the UX. And everything he had to say about what he was building was right. Like, me and my CTO, Brennan Bowles, who's been using After Effects as long as I have, for
Mm-hmm.
30 years, every question we threw at him, he had the right answer. And we were really excited with what he was doing, but then he didn't have money to get us involved, so we never got involved. But the result is Autograph.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that I've never really used the final version, because when he was asking me, I was so passionate about After Effects. It would have been the right time to get me involved. I have other priorities in my life now.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't doubt it if it is truly a great After Effects killer. The problem is a user base problem, and how do you get people? If I have to do a job and hire a freelancer, it's really hard for us to deviate from the leading tools like After Effects or Cinema 4D because no one really knows how to use these tools.
Hmm.
And and that's what we were trying to build. My idea with the UX was like build it so any After Effects artist could just jump right in, and then we could expose even more things. Um, which I don't think it ever shipped. Like originally, it had a full node-based system in there, and you could switch between nodes or timeline
That
view
would be cool.
at any time. And I don't know if he still plans to do that. When Maxon acquired Red Giant, they and I'm friends with the guys who made Red Giant. They kept Stu Matchowitz, who was the creative director
Hmm.
at Red Giant, and Stu. When I started in this industry, Stu was already a legend. And Rebel Mac at ILM, and he was on the board of directors of Puffin Designs, where I worked. Coming up with features for our software, and my thought was like, back in the day, Stu was the biggest After Effects beta tester and giving alpha tester, just giving features. And I was like, man, guaranteed Maxon wants Stu to build an After Effects
Mm.
killer. That was my thought.
See,
And then
my
it never
my thing is
happened.
always, I've always said build out, because the thing with Red Giant is very dependent on Adobe. Like at any point in time, Adobe could just be like, we don't want your tools on here. We're not going to allow them. But it's like, because Red Giant tools are so reliant on that, they're beholden to After Effects. And it's like, I always said Super Comp, for example, is a really cool feature. I don't personally use it because I have no need necessarily, but it's such an awesome feature that it needs to be its own standalone application.
Yeah. After Effects was the bottleneck, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like they had all these little, particulars GUI is all running in real time on OpenGL, and or not OpenGL, but GPU.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's how things should be working these days. And then it's like you hit OK, and now you're like tunk, 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 because After Effects is a 35-year-old architecture. I just got invited to wish David Simons, who made After Effects, his congratulations on your 35th year at Adobe.
Wow.
And he started it 35 years ago, COSA, and it that's old tech, man. That's a cracked foundation in your house, and you've just been building a lot on top of this,
For sure.
old brick foundation. It's like the earthquake's going to knock those bricks over one day.
Yeah.
Um, but this autograph is like what Adobe should have done years ago. And I remember getting into an argument with the former After Effects product manager, who I feel terrible for being such a argumentative dickhead at the time. But it was the day the iPad came out. It was in 2009 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at an event at Adobe in San Jose, and everything was going in the wrong direction at that time. These were the flash days. And I was like, you guys have to start over. You have to build a new version. And he's like, Matt, you know how long it would take us to rebuild After Effects from scratch? It would take at least 4 years. And I was like, here we are now. We're 17 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could have been at version 10 by now,
Right.
dude, with like a modern tool. That's just like,
The
and then when you
problem with
see,
like building something from the bottom up though is like, you've got companies like Adobe and Maxon and now Blender who are on these 3 to 4 cycle updates every year. And if you pause on that, especially because the Maxons and the Adobes are publicly traded companies, you're going to have people, not feel so confident about their brand or something like that. They're kind of beholden to the shareholders in order to keep features
there's ways
coming
to do it.
out.
You could you could have a parallel track, and you're secretly making this replacement. But Adobe is a company that traditionally, they don't innovate until their stock drops. And when you think about like what have they actually made,
Yeah.
like the you go way back, it's like they made Illustrator
Mm-hmm.
in like 1985. They acquired Photoshop.
Yeah.
They didn't buy it. I mean, they bought it from John Knoll. They you know everything After Effects was acquired, and technically After Effects was acquired for $340 million because they bought Aldus wanting PageMaker.
Mm-hmm.
And in that deal, there was this extra little program that they didn't really care about called After Effects. Aldus had just acquired Cosa,
Mm-hmm.
and out of that acquisition, I think it's the only tool that still exists. But they made InDesign, and they made Premiere, I guess, and
Yeah.
and then they tried to make XD and it failed, so they tried to acquire Figma, and it's like they basically are an acquisition company that and then once they buy the tech, it just like goes it just languishes. It's like Autodesk, same deal.
Yeah.
It's sad because there's a lot of great technology that both Autodesk and Adobe has ended up with that just languishes.
Yeah. I hope
I
that's
used to
not the
really
case.
care. Yeah, I don't care anymore,
Yeah.
man, because everything's going to vibe
Right.
coding, and we're gonna make
You're
our
gonna make your
own
own
After
after. I'll make
Effects.
my own After Effects.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that's not the case with the acquisition of the AE competitor. I hope Maxon does something with it because
Oh, I think that
I feel
they
like they
will,
really
because
could.
now they can control. I guarantee you that it is GPU heavy, that tool, and you'll the performance that you're seeing inside of Red Giant's little widgets you'll get in the host app.
Yeah.
And if Maxon's user base adopts it, that's the traction you need. Like, this thing never would have flown with Alexander doing it on his own from France. And the revision effects are awesome, guys. I love those dudes. But there's two guys, and then a couple of helpers, and they won their Academy Awards and their Emmys,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think they don't have the energy right now to like do a startup and get that thing to the masses.
Yeah.
Red Giant could get it to the or Maxon could get it to the masses.
Yeah.
So, and knowing that Stu is there, it'll be implemented correctly. That's the kind of the beauty. So,
That's cool. That's cool. That's a good way to think about it. I like that. Yeah. Okay.
and it also is like now Adobe's got a kick in the ass. You know that there's a war room going on, and those guys have been like on vacation for a decade.
Yeah.
They're like, shit, get back to the office, everybody. We got competition. We're not playing soccer by ourselves anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. I it could be one of those things where yeah, I don't know. Because I don't see a lot of like motion designers who are C40 heavy, getting rid of their Adobe subscription, just to run this one. I don't know. Cinema 2D. That's what I've been saying for years. Cinema 2D. That's what I want.
Well, why hasn't After Effects added like 3D shape layers with repeaters? They could have done MoGraph
Yeah.
15 years ago, and they didn't. I get frustrated. I'm squeezing one of these. Talking about Adobe, man. But again, like it works, and we could get freelancers, and I can make money, and it's like it's a tool, and it does its job, and we've been using it now for 30 years, and it works. So
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Matt, I gotta go. I gotta get back to work, as I'm sure you do. But thank you so much. I
yeah,
gotta have you back on. I love
no,
your
let's do it again,
stories,
man.
and I love your history, and it's just like I could literally listen to you talk for hours.
At any time you have a hole in your calendar, dude, I'll be the guy that everybody's like, not that guy. But, yeah,
The old curmudgeon yelling at the clouds.
pretty much. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Matt, I appreciate it, and have a great day, and We'll be in touch.
Yeah, man. Thanks to everyone for joining. Make sure to follow us on all the socials, especially YouTube and Twitch. We started our weekly MoGraph Hangouts. We've been doing that. I skipped last week. It was my kid's birthday, so I was hanging out with him. We're going to continue on this week. We may go to another direction. We've been creating a video game, but I think we may do some more MoGraphy, other stuff this week. But yeah, make sure and join us. Those are on Thursday. We got a bunch of great guests lining up. If you don't subscribe to the newsletter, sign up for the newsletter. You can do that at mograph.com. You'll hear about all the guests coming up and other stuff. Also, if you haven't done it, speaking of mograph.com, sign up for your own mograph.com account. It's got everything a motion designer needs. You can sell your digital goods, post jobs, apply for jobs, find meetup groups, start one of your own, and so much more planned. We almost are at 800 members, and we're growing. We're an artist-first site where your work will always be yours and will never be fed to the AI machines. So, yeah.
Bots. Okay, Matt, I'm out of here.
All right.
I guess what?
Thanks, everyone. I'm Matt. Later, yo.
It's pretty good, I guess.